So we're already live, and we'll just wait for 10 more seconds
Right.
so that our audience can join. Alright. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Farhan Ali, and this is the fifth episode of Anveshana session, a series of expert discussion and Q&A
Hello
on
and
issues.
welcome everyone. I'm Farhan Ali and this is the fifth episode of Anveshana session, a series of expert discussion and Q&A. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm
Uh, I'm really sorry I had a technical problem. I'm starting again. Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Farhan Ali and this is the fifth episode of Anveshana session, a series of expert discussion and Q&A on issues of climate change and human rights. In this session, we'll be having a discussion on hunger, food security, climate change, and their intersection with Mr. Murli Dhar, Director of the Sustainable Agriculture Program at WWF. He also served as in an advisory capacity on national and international committees to improve certification in agriculture and forestry. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invite and joining us in this event. Um,
Yeah,
so,
thanks,
sir,
Farhan, for a wonderful introduction. I don't know why the voice is bumping back to me. Can you correct, the voice at your end?
yeah, I can hear your voice at my end.
But it's bumping back to me, right? You are in mute. Yeah.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, you are very much audible. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Alright, so let's moving on to the topic. Going with our first topic, hunger and food security. So, sir, can you help us understand in a very layman term what does food security means?
Look, the food security has been when, the many years ago, the concept of food security was very limited from the access point of view, right? Because when the world was not producing as we should be, getting it, so there was some sort of definition was there in terms of the food access to the people. So most of the people they used to go bad, without having any meal. Over the years, the definition has changed, right? Because the most of the countries from now, if we look back from 1950, where we are in 2022, the production scenario has changed globally, right? So we are producing now more than the required. So in terms of if we see the the food profiles, what comes to our plate, right? So we are eating the different sort of food, like the cereals, which comes in a grain form, right? Wheat, rice, and the wheat in a very layman term, which is which is part of our diet. And also we eat the different kind of pulses, vegetables, fruits, and meat, the which comes from the different animals, and also we eat the eggs. Now the problem is in in India. I'm just giving you the figure. What we are producing annually, we are producing around 1,000 million tons of the food, which comprise everything, right? So that is the the big basket which is available in India. But the unfortunate part of this, those people who are living, in the far, and they don't have a money to access food, they are deprived from the nutritional diet, right? So now I think now the debate is whatever the the people are eating, irrespective of the they belong to any class, they should have enough food to provide the day-to-day nutrition. So which is not there in India. We are still struggling, though that we are producing the around, as I said, 1,000 million ton of the food. It comes every year in our basket, pool of the basket, and then it goes the further. But still, there are many people who don't have access to nutritional food in India. So therefore, we can call the many people they are still living the in hunger from the nutritional point of view, and they don't have access. Uh, there could be a many reason to get that food in their plates, right?
Already pointed out that you are saying that we are producing more than enough now. So so it's like when we are producing more than enough, and now you pointed out the definition has changed. Now it is more into nutritional values. So when we move forward, we have conquested that thing that we are producing more than enough now. But now the problem is that we are not able to distribute it to the like everyone is not accessible to the food. So there are multiple problems to it. Can you just like put in some like some of the problem, like why are we not able to?
Or can you repeat yourself? I'm not hearing you properly. Yeah.
Even your voice is a little bit down actually, so I'm finding it hard to hear.
My voice is very high. Can you be a little louder?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So my next question is, so we have increased our production level. We have increased our
Yeah.
production level. So with that, we have also increased, like we have adopted a lot of commercial method of producing food. So what are those commercial method and what are the drawbacks of those commercial methods?
There's been a lot of the improvement happen over the years within the way the food is being produced. So that is being triggered by the various new the technologies we those came on board. One of the such technology is fertilizer, right? So we are pumping in a lot of nitrogen, which is pushing up the production in India or elsewhere. Also, the another input which is quite the critical from the production point of view is the water. We also we have been giving more water as compared to the earlier, because earlier when we started the food production in India, that time we didn't have a dams and we didn't have a micro irrigation system who can provide the access to the farmers to draw water from rivers or groundwater to put back into the farms. And also then the another factor which also help to stabilize the production, not to help to increase the production, is the pesticide which came into play in order to manage the pesticide rate, which otherwise would have had an impact the way the food is being produced. So these are the major inputs are being given in India to produce the food, which I just mentioned. We are producing around 1,000 million ton every year, and which comes in various forms to our plate.
Yes, sir. So the use of pesticide, when we started using pesticides, so it's like when we started it, it helped us. Like it increased our production. When we started using chemicals and everything, but now the small farmers who has like less land and even the big farmers, so they are stressed to grow more and more food, and for that they are putting more and more fertilizers more than needed, and it's like statistically only 1% of pesticide are being used to kill pests and rest all goes to the water and pollute everything. So what is what is the solution of it? And eventually it is also increasing the cost for the farmers. So uh, it is also harmful for farmer and even harmful for the environment. So
Yeah, I think it creates a lot of problem. The overuse of pesticide has been a big issue over the all over India. In terms of I'm just giving you the why the farmers are putting up a huge pesticide, right? And there is solution itself is available. So in case of the pesticide use, the farmers usually don't use any sort of data in order to apply the pesticide. So what they do, the current practice of the farmers in India here, they go and they put a random, the pesticide in order to avoid the risk which they would be thinking, right? So in terms of the solution, there are various solutions are available globally. The technology, the way the technology is booming up in India, if we provide, the access to the farmers of that technology, then potentially the farmers would be having a data in their hand and they can plan their management practices in order to rationalize the use of the pesticide. So this is one thing, that we are trying to work on it. In WWF, as I said, basically what we are trying to do, we are using the remote sensing tag. So what it does, the remote sensing tag, we are just retrieving the data even from the 10 by 10 square meter of the area through the remote sensing. And we have developed some algorithms which basically the data comes, falls in those, through the remote sensing on the server. And then we have algorithm backend which calculates, the what kind of pesticide or what amount of the water to be used. So it's helping them. We have not been reached, the many farmers, but as of now, as we speak, we already, the work with 200,000 farmers who are still using those kind of apps in order to, the take day-to-day management decisions.
That's really impressive, like the use of technology and the AI in the farming sector. So, so as you mentioned, like these can be the solutions, but on a policy and investment level, we don't see it in like from the government side. And one more thing I would like to like put in the subsidies which the government give. So they are like product based subsidies. So when you put more or like buy more and more fertilizers, you get more and more subsidy. When you use more and more water, so you get more and more subsidies. So it's like, isn't it promoting more and more, like like it's kind of promoting the usage of more and more resources, even if a farmer wants to turn into a like some kind of natural farming. So they are not like they are not intense, and they don't have any incentive kind of things. So what are
So
your
it's,
take on it?
yeah, so incentive structure right now, what the question was, and let me rephrase what you are trying to ask. You are trying to ask there is already inbuilt subsidies are available in the product, and this could be this could be a barrier for the farmers not to uptake the different kind of agriculture system, right? So rightly pointed out, there needs to be, the uptick kind of incentive structures needs to be created for those farmers who are going for, the nature-based kind of agriculture system. And nature-based agriculture system is the need of the hour, right? And everyone knows, the chemicals now, they are no longer effective enough in order to, push up the production system which we are expecting. So coming back to the point, yeah, nature-based, the system is required in order to, the maintain the growth and the services of the environment, which we are expecting from, the nature to be given to produce what we need to be, to be eaten in India.
So it's like when we move to like there was a natural farming before this commercialization came, fertilizers and everything. So now if we like there's a lot of critical and like criticism in this, or a kind of critical thinking, like when we move toward a natural farming and much more eco-friendly farming, the production will go down. At least at first it will go down. So is it true? Will it go down? Or
It will go down eventually, in first 2 years, the production, the farmers needs to be, the compromise with the, the drop down of the production. So, because the nature, to bring back the nature to get the services from it, eventually will take its own time, right? Because we already own it, and the going back the way the for 50 years ago, the 60 years ago, the agriculture was there. That agriculture was quite refresh, right? The fresh. We didn't use much chemicals and much fertilizer to get the growth which we are expecting. But the nature has also has a potential to the provide the production which we do have right now on the plate. So in first 2 years, there will be a fall in growth, but the other side, the incentive structure can come on to subsidize that the tip in first 2 years. In classical example, I can give you the example of the way the organic system works in the globally. So even in organic, everyone knows, that when some farmers they are switching over from conventional to the organic, there will be a drop in at least in 3 years. So that drop is being subsidized by the businesses who are out there, who are helping farmers for that transition, and in turn they are subsidizing them in form of premium, So some companies, they are outgoing companies, they wanted to ahead than the other companies, they are doing so. But government subsidies are required in order to bring larger transition, without which the transition won't happen. Not only the incentives, farmers also needs a tax support, right? Because right now the tax is available from the chemical side. We don't have a much, the much investment hasn't been put from the research side. What kind of environmental or the nature-based services can be enhanced in order to get that protection, which we need, right? So there is the government the first step from the government should be to put some investment, create a new technologies. We all know, that we already lost a lot of pollinators from this planet because of overuse of various chemicals. Those came in place, and they basically rid off some of the pollinators who used to give us the services in terms of the production. We lost it, and there are some studies which they are saying, because of those pollinators, we are our productivity got down by 25%, right? So in order to get back that productivity, the potential of that productivity, we have to rework the way the nature was functioning and bring back those services which we lost from this, the planet. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, yes, sir, that really made sense. Like the fertilizers and pesticide are degrading and the environment, and the productivity is eventually going down by using them. So we need to work, like reshape it, and even at first few years it's gonna be down, but eventually it will catch up, right?
It will catch up as a sign, because the nature has the potential to produce as the chemical chemistry has. So nature can be revived because the nature has all the aspects which modern agriculture is providing you. Nature has a nitrogen, right? Nature has a phosphorus. Nature has a potassium, and nature has the has a resilience to even control the pest
Yes.
population. I'm just giving you one example since this topic is quite interesting. Even the modern scientists, they are using the nature to get an alert. The one example is when the pest population comes in, right? So there are the nature-based alerts are there. So they are using those nature-based alerts to make it to convert into the data and inform the farmers or the producers what kind of action they should do. So it's a growing. It's right now the field is growing, but the in I'm sure in coming years, maybe in another 10 years, we would be having in a position to draw as much as we can from the nature without harming it.
Very true, sir. And even like I was thinking like the pesticide and everything which are being used in the food industry, they are eventually polluting the food system and food cycle also. So it's like once I read, like long before I read that Maggie noodles were banned because it was found that it has excess lead in it. So I was wondering why would they add lead, because lead is way more expensive than
Like
noodles.
this Nestle example is is a different example because the lead came not from the nature, right? Lead came from the artificially they were adding lead into the meat. So in terms of the the food system is already everyone knows is already messed up. Right? In terms of the pesticide residues which are being used in farms, they are coming back in our plate, right? So what we can do, there is a in the US, there are the very modern systems are available, which the regulate the pesticide, the coming back in your plate. So in India, we are way ahead to go in order to have those systems where we don't allow pesticides to come in our plate because we don't have any kind of regulatory framework which makes sure that if the produce is being sold, say in APMC, in any mandi, we don't have any structural mechanism which carry out tests. What kind of residues are there before it comes to you, and what kind of impact those residues would be having on the even on the population which would be eating. So there is a lot of regulatory framework needed to be brought in. That we can't rely as a India if we are even phasing out the pesticides from the use point of view. But still, there are many pesticides which are being used, and they do have not only the impact on the food system, on the human, but they do have an impact on the other animals or other species, those who are in and around. So it's a critical first, that to have stringent regulatory mechanism in order to phase it out those chemicals from the system. Now the question is, the how those. Now the question would be, do those chemicals would be having any added cost on the farmers? There the policies and the subsidies can come in, right? So if the farmers are using more and more greener molecules, greener chemicals, they are they're available in various forms. Even in the modern chemistry we have a chemicals, those who don't have any impact whatsoever, right? So we can manage your pest. So the cost would be high, but there the government can subsidize those chemicals, those who are the harmless chemicals from the environment and the people from, rather than subsidizing only the even the chemicals who may have an impact on the human and the nature. So yeah,
Yes, sir. So
I'm
as you, yes, sir.
I'm done.
Yeah.
If you have any
So
follow up,
you pointed out there's a lack of transparency in the uh, food system. It's like you cannot track back where the food came from and what it was used to be like what was used to made it, right? And moreover, pesticide is also affecting everyone, as you also pointed out that a lot of pollinators we have already lost a lot of pollinators due to fertilizers and pesticides. Moving forward, uh, I would like to ask you some questions on, as you pointed out, the government policies and subsidizing all these things. So, what happens to the tenants and landless laborers? They have like there are a certain kind of policy and a certain kind of incentives given to farmers who are cultivators. As per them, they are landowners. So what happens to those who are not even land, I mean, they are landless, like they don't have land, and still they are farmers, they are cultivators.
they are the most the worst affected and the vulnerable communities within the agriculture system, right? The laborers, they are the ones who are taking a brunt of pesticide and the fertilizer, because the farmers, they are paying them to spray a fertilizer, and they get all the all the exposure of those fertilizers. So from the impact point of view, there is a huge impact of the pesticide use, because the laborers as the communities, they are the ones who are doing this business on behalf of the landlord. What some people, what they are trying to do, because as I said, they are the most vulnerable, the communities among the among the demographic. So some people, they have taken some very big and small initiatives in order to provide them the protection system, the PP, we call it PPP, right? So the protective, the measures needs to be taken at their end. That they should have, all the protective, the equipment while they spray those fertilizer. So there are many problems. So that we can go step by step. First, we can just give them those PPP toolkits so that they can wear those toolkits while spraying, to minimize the impact, minimize the exposure, because they are, as I said, they are the ones who are taking a brunt, most of the brunt, and the farmers is enjoying sitting somewhere. So yeah, so there is a need to be the bring. There is no as such policies available in order to protect their health, particularly the labor community, from the from these kind of exposure. As I said, they are the ones who expose most as compared to farmers.
So like these tenants and these landless farmers, they are not even considered farmers as per the policy, government policy. So how do they find out like who is farmer and who is not farmer?
Right now, the full we are just arguing the larger definition, how you will qualify the farmer. We have a, we have taken a the bit definition which came from the British legacy to us. Still, we are following that. And that definition is classical. This depends on the land holdings. So the farmers who owns land, it means if my my land of the piece is registered in Tehsil, then I will become a farmer. And those who don't have a land, those even those who are in operations, say as you said, there are many absentee farmers in India. They are relying on those channels. They don't have any kind of acknowledgement. So there is a need to reshape the way we are actually, the qualifying the farmers, not on the basis of the land, but the definition should be on the basis of how you operate, how you are, the operating your land. As soon as you bring that operation expect, then the dilemma which you have been asked saying again and again about the about those the vulnerable communities, they will become part of the larger community, and they will be the having the benefits of the government schemes whatever they are doing. One example, there are many government schemes are floating where the farmers are being given some 6,000 rupees or 12,000 rupees, and it varies from state to state. But that those are going even to the absentee farmer who might be sitting in Delhi, and the farmers who would be the putting his own sweat and blood, he would be the getting nothing. So the subsidy needs to go there. So for that we need to do some sort of the rephrasing the way the phrase is out to qualify the farmers.
Yes, sir. So we need to rephrase the definition of farmers as per the policy. And moving over to the climate change topic. So how does climate change, how like right now climate change is happening and it's evident. So how is it affecting agriculture and farmers in India?
Agriculture is one of the worst affected the sector from the climate change point of view. You might have read the agriculture always the agriculture when the before monsoon hits in India, we start talking about how the monsoon would be in say in 2022, right? So why these talks happens before the monsoon? Everyone knows because the monsoons drives the production. If you get a good monsoon, you can see your production would be very high in that year. If you don't get a good monsoon, then you would see the data would tell you itself you won't get a production. So the whole agriculture system of India is absolutely driven by the weather, right? And if we don't get, the uneven weather, suppose if we are getting in some years, then we would be having the direct impact would be on the production which comes to our food. So yeah, in a very layman term, it has an impact. And as I try to mention you, I don't want to get into the that there is a lot of nitty-gritties are involved because even the rising temperature in a day would be having impact on the production because all the the climatic factors which we do have, they are driving the production. If something gets messed up in any of the climatic factors, then we would that would be having an impact on the grains, particularly in the food system. Right. So one example could be if the night very quickly, if the night temperature goes up, then your ripening of wheat would going not to be there, right? So you would be losing, your grains. You won't be getting enough grains when the the harvest comes up. So there are, the relationship is already being made, and the science, environment science, climatic science is already advanced. It already told us, the what kind of repercussion could be if anything gets messed up on the any weather pattern.
So this makes like it's like there's so much insecurity in agriculture because of climate change and there's so much of pest and everything. So there's a lot of chances of crop failure and all those all those things like the farmer can like have a huge loss on himself. So do they like do there is anything called farm insurance or some kind of insurance policy in which farmers can have some sort of like relief and something because it yes please.
Look, there are the insurance. uh, instruments are available, right, in India, and those instruments take care the risks which farmers would be having from the environment, right? But there are many, the problems, the way the products, insurance products are available. I don't want to get in, right, in that today. The point is, which you are trying to mention, if any parameters get shifted, then there is likely, the farmers may get a lower yield what he should be, right? It's not like that because right now the farmers has a luxury to cope up those risks which comes to him by managing their resources. Right? Just to give you example, suppose if the farmers say in 2022 as we speak don't get enough water and his crop might be standing crop might get get wilted. So what he does, right, in order to manage that risk, because he will not going to rely on your insurance pack, which would come in later. What he would going to do as a farmer, he would start pumping more water, right? So today is me, what it would happen, by pumping more water, you are getting more water, then it gets replenished back into the system. In year 2022, we may not be seeing that problem, right? Because he's managing. Because the farmers as we speak in August, say in 27th August, if he has to take a decision, the insurance pack would come in November, December. He will not going to do. He will going to manage the risk of 27th September, so August. So what he would do, suppose if he doesn't get any spell, rains, he's having a dry, the dry land, so he would start pumping out the water in order to manage. As I said, what it would happen that the whole system would not going to be replenished. So this problem will agree, the perpetually would go bigger and bigger. In by 2030, there are models that area, the, the particular area where the hypothetical area would not be having enough water to give. So the insurance package is for this year, 2022. But if something messed up because of 2022 in 2030, from where the insurance package is coming, from where he would going to insure. So there are many problems. So those risks needs to be managed on the particular spot in the particular time, so that the repercussion could not be seen in 2020.
Alright, so as you pointed out, as I said, so I just wonder, like India is major producer of rice, sugarcane, cotton, and like all these water like intensive crop. So does it have a major impact in India, or it is gonna be will it have a major impact in India, like
It's
coming?
already had the impact, right? Those crops already, already told us, there is impact. I don't want to get into the history, the why we have taken and what happened, right? Everyone knows, right? The classical example, again and again come on the discussion table about the Punjab, right? Punjab story, everyone knows, even those who are born in India. Why that happened? Because we know wheat and rice system ruined the whole hydrology of that state. It will eventually, the if we continue with those systems, those are very exploitative systems. From the the water point of view, we will be again having we will be losing a lot of water from the system, and the Punjab story can be replicated in many other states. Right? So, so now the the now what is the solution? Right? Because always people ask about what should be the solution. We whatever the decisions are being taken in terms of the which crop in which geographies needs to be grown, we don't account the future models in. So we basically found what today's is, right, and we don't see that if we are going for some crop, we don't do some sort of scenario analysis what impact would be in particular area, right? So agriculture is properly right now is very random. Though I am from agriculture, I have been practicing agriculture for many years, but I haven't seen anyone is using those kind of scenario models which can tell you if you're growing a sugarcane, say in some area, then how much water it would be needed in perpetual year, and what kind of impact it would be. So once you do that impact analysis, then you can come up with some sort of adaptive strategy in order to avert that impact, which you would be having. And going back to the Punjab example, when it was being planned, right, that time those who were in the planning to create in India from the food self-sufficiency point of view, those people they were looking that time only food, right? They were not looking what kind of impact that production will bring back to us. So now we are suffering from the from the bad decision which came from the planning, and we lost that resource, which was right about. So these are some of the solutions. In going forward, the way the changes are being happening in India, we are just going for newer crops. I don't want to mention, what those crops are, but those crops may have the huge impact on the local, the headline. The solution would be, from the solution point of view, as I said, we have to look not today, we have to look future, what kind of impact those the decisions we're going to make on various things, and then then plan it. Another example, as you mentioned about the sugar cane, again not mentioning the name of the company, they had in South India, that company particularly had a 9 sugar mills where they used to crush the cane which used to come from the farms. Because of the depletion of the water in the catchment of the sugar mills, they closed their 4 mills, because the 4 mills, the way the water goes down, gone down, those the catchment of those 4 mills, they are not able to produce what the sugar mills needed to crush. So so they are just now they are facing the brunt of the bad planning. So going forward, as I said, we have to be from the planning point of view, we have to make a lot of changes the way the things are being planned, and look from the future point of view and bring some sort of mechanism to can cover the risk which that cloud might be bringing in the particular region.
Yes, planning is very important, and agriculture should be practiced in a sustainable manner. Uh, Always taking
Not
consideration.
sustainable manner, it should be looking from the future point of view. When you are making any plan, you have to create a horizon of 20 to 30 years. Today, it may not be today's, whatever you are taking a decision, when sound today's, that decision might sound good, but in future, it might become a tragedy. So we have to look from that point of view, and not from the now point of view. We have to look from then point of view. What would be the repercussion of any decision which is being taken? Again, classical example. We are going back on the fertilizer. Nobody looked what would happen. In 50 or 60 year horizon, people started using 60 years ago. Now we are the facing the brunt of the decision which has been taken, because that the horizon was very limited, a year or 2 years. They haven't looked the beyond, say, 10 years or 2 decades.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And moving forward, as we are already up with 40 minutes, so I'll open the like even though I have a lot of questions still, but I'll open the platform for the uh, questions from audience. So we have a question received from one Akansha. Uh, so she is 18-year-old, and she says, "Is it true that the chemicals seep into the food we eat and also in the food which is fed into animal used for human consumption, and as we eat them, it transfers into human body?"
Yeah, the answer is simple yes, right? So there is a the I'm just giving you how it comes to our the food plate. Look, the whatever the suppose if 10 liter of the pesticides are being sprayed on the standing crop. say, I'm just taking example because that girl seems very young. She might have not seen the farm. If those pesticides are being spread on the the crop, some portion of the pesticide would go into the grains, right? Because it has the pesticide, the chemicals do have their own life cycle, so they don't die, right? So they are the chemicals; they have a longer life cycle. So it's some of the portion of that chemical goes into, say, on the leaf which we are eating, right? Some portion of the pesticide would go into the fruits. Some portion of the pesticide would get into the grain. So from the grain, it comes back to your food. Now, another question she also asked about the animals, right? So animals are, are being fed what we are eating, right? So in a different form, right? So there's some melting animal, the milk which comes to you, and then those farmers they are eating, the different kind of protein which comes from agriculture system. So those protein which are being fed to those chemicals, they must be carrying, some of the chemicals which are being used in those crops.
Yes, sir. And even like I read a case study on haploid eggs. So haploid eggs, they are made from estrogen, like giving is estrogen to hens. So it's like they are causing a lot of like breast cancer problems, and even in like they're causing in women and even in men the development of breast is increasing. So because of those eggs, I read the case study on it.
Yeah, so there are, the many repercussion of those, those chemicals which are being used in animal within the food industry. We all know there are, the science is quite loud, and that we have done as a humanity a lot of research which tells us, what could be the repercussion. So yeah, so there are, but at this point of time, unfortunately, I don't have any kind of clinical, the evidence to substantiate those. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are proven, and yeah, clinically also, and from the academia.
And so we have Riddhi Parmar. She has a question.
Yeah,
Riddhi
please,
Parmar,
Vijay, go ahead.
please go.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been helpful to listen to you when you say that there has been discrepancy in the planning and the execution of the program. And so, my question is that some of us today have joined you who are right now in the metropolitan cities, right? So, this is metropolitan cities are regions where secondary activities and tertiary activities take precedence over primary productional activities. So, as young individuals, who are sensitive towards climate change and the environmental issues, how do you think we can do our part in bridging the gap between hunger, food security, and climate change? From your perspective.
I think the citizens also can play, the greater role the way the problems are, right? So we can't run away from, the role which we can play importantly in terms of the specifics. The what, like you people, I'm also living in, the metropolitan city. I'm in Delhi, and where you already mentioned, the secondary and the tertiary activities happens, and and the support is required to be given where the primary activities are being taken up. So as a citizen, what we can do collectively, we can push a pressure on government to reshape the policy, right? Because right now the policies are not in favoring to those who are in production. We had a discussion today, there is Farhan already mentioned a couple of the discrepancies in the policies. Big example of the labor, those who are putting more efforts, but they are not called as a, the farm. So how, that person who is right now, the in operation, he can't go and push the pressure on the government to make, the policy in his or in her favor. So now, as a, the responsible citizens and the extended, the citizen of civil society, our roles comes even, the much greater than the, those who are on the production. So we can play our bit. You can write articles, you can write, the blog, you can, go and talk to, whenever you see the opportunity to talk to politicians and the government in order to inform them, that these are the issues, and that these could be the ways out in order to address them. So yes, so civil citizens. are really important even to reshape the policies the way they are.
All right. Thank you, sir.
And also you are the consumer, right? So you can also push back the pressure on the the supply chain, and you start demanding the asking them about the transparency, right? Say if the Nestle, as we already had a discussion, if they are using the any kind of raw material, you can start asking those kind of queries to Nestle, what kind of the residues are coming, because as a the product user, you have all the right to ask this question, in terms of how much pesticide residues are there, why they are not disclosing all these things, why they are keeping all these things in the dark, why they are not informing to the customer. It would be having the back impact to the primary producer who is not connected directly with your.
Thank you, sir. And moving forward, we have one more question from Akshat Goel. He's 22-year-old. His question is: if a food security risks hovers over a country, how disproportionate would be the impact on food crisis, malnutrition, and gender minorities? I mean, more specifically on women.
Yeah, it would be having the if the disproportionate the availability of food would come in. Suppose if we are producing, say, as I said, the 1,000 million tons in India, 100 the 1,000 million tons in India. So it goes down, say, from 1,000 to 900, 900 to 800. Those who have a lot of money in their pockets, who would be having then the inflation would go up, and those who have a the good money in their pocket, they would be accessing much, right? And those who don't have a much in their pocket, they won't be the access, they won't be having whatsoever any access to that. So it would be having the the impact. The women are the most vulnerable, as I said, from the the way the earnings differences are there in India. Men's are earning more than the women. So yeah, so they would be the worst impacted from the vulnerability point of view if that situation arises. But I'm telling you, that from the being in the sector, we have enough food. We already produce most. Globally, we don't have a much shortage, right? As we are, as we speak. So those shortages, if some countries produce like this right now, we are in midst of the war between Ukraine mm, and Russia. So it disrupted the supply chain, but the because of that, some countries, some African countries, they are not able to get what they used to get from that. But in terms of availability, we have enough food, so there's no worry. And the if something that goes wrong, then we have a union, the UN systems who can create alerts and who can create a negotiation, who can bring negotiation on the table so that the the food can be distributed with equity, and everyone should be having the food access to that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. As right to food is a human right,
Yeah,
everyone
it's
should have access.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important to have food on plates. And our last question is from Ariman. Uh, he says, "I want to use organic stuffs in my farm, but it's very costly. Any way around you suggest?"
Organic stuff I didn't get as an organic input, right?
Yeah, he wants to. Like he is using fertilizer and pesticides maybe. So he wants to turn into an organic farm and organic farming.
So he can turn it, right. So there are he can do by itself. That there are new technologies are available where you can collect all the agri waste which might be coming from your farms, and then those waste can be turned into the the compost. So that can go into the as a supplement in order to replace your nutrient. Then let your farm allows the nature to give you the service. So there's no need to to put anything. Nature will itself take care the pest which would be coming. So let allow the nature to function. So there are two things, as I said. The one, you let the create your own manure. You can use a lot of waste which might be coming from the harvest, because most of the waste in India which comes from those harvests goes for no use. Right? So usually people burn it out. We have a lot of examples. After the harvest, people they start burning the stubble. That those stubbles can be reused in order to make a manure, and let your farmers, let your farms allow to create the the nature-based services so that you can have your own product.
So reusing the stuff and
Yeah.
using the stuff in much more efficient manner is the key. Thank you so much, sir, for this session. And just the last question. So it's like there's a UN has this zero hunger plan. So, like, can you just suggest us some, like, as per you, as you have already been in this sector for decade and you have worked on a ground level. So, what can be the solution to the zero? Like, you have already pointed out that the world is already producing enough. So, some like subtle, like some key points in solving the zero hunger problem.
Look, I'm not expert on the hunger side, right? But the lot of people they have been working. I've been the working on the production side, right? But in terms of the hunger, as I said earlier, also as I said, a lot of people they don't have enough money to buy the food which they should eat, right? So a lot of people, what they are doing, there is a new science already evolved over the year, but we need carefully, the calibrate the science. A lot of fortification already started in India, right? In many other countries where the malnutrition problems are. Okay. So in Delhi, since most of the people are from Delhi, you might have seen the mother dairy gone for the fortification, and all the mother dairy, the pack of 1 liter or half liter milk, they are already fortified. Right? So there has been a lot of criticism that might the fortification might give you the nutrition which you may not be able to take, right? And it might give you as me the it might give me the over nutrients which I might not require. So theoretically, the going for these kind of universal fortification may have a may create a different kind of problem. As I said, if we don't see today, tomorrow, that may become a tragedy. So in terms of those people who are, who are poor, we need to create some sort of mechanism for them so that they can get a required nutrition in order to avoid any kind of the hunger.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think this yes over.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And uh, like, thank you so much, sir, for the session. And it was really insightful session. I hope our audience loved it, and I hope even you enjoyed our company. And we're ending the session right now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Farhan. Look forward.